This video will describe Chapter 5.5, Solving Multi-Step Equations and Inequalities. So what we're going to focus on today is both the inequality and the equation, keeping in mind that you've solved them the same way. The biggest difference is the sign. So because this is an equal sign, this is obviously an equation. Okay, and so the idea is the same. I need to isolate the variable. I need to get the variable by itself. So the first thing I need to do is distribute. So I'm going to distribute this 3, and I get 3d plus 3 times 2 is 6 equals 12. Now, trying to get the d by itself, I need to take away the constant, which is 6. That's a positive 6, so the opposite of positive 6 is negative 6. I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. That will cancel out, and I've got 3d equals 6. Now I need to divide by the number that's in front of the d. The number in front of the d is a 3, so I'm going to divide both sides by 3, and I end up with d equals 2. Now if I want to check my answer, I can come take the 2 and plug it back in here. 2 plus 2 is 4. Keep in mind, I got to do inside the parentheses first. 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 times 3 equals 12. So I know that this answer is definitely correct. All right, now if you want to try to solve a multi-step inequality, it's going to be the same idea. Okay, keep in mind what we learned in our last lesson when you should and should not flip this sign. And so I'm going to multiply. First thing I got to do is distribute. I'm going to multiply the 4 to both of the terms inside the parentheses. And this becomes 4x minus 12 is greater than 8. All right, now I got to get the 4x by itself. So the opposite of 12 is of negative 12 is positive 12. So I'm going to add positive 12. Keep in mind it's to both sides. Okay, again, like we talked about before, it may be easier for some of you to deal with the sign first. Since I'm adding a number, the sign is not going to change. So this will cancel out, and I'm left with 4x on this side. And then I've got 8 plus 12, and 8 plus 12 is 20. Okay, now I have 4x on the left side. I need to get x by itself. I want to divide by the number that is in front of the x. I'm going to divide by 4. Okay, now this is where people often make a mistake because they get flip happy with these signs. I'm dividing by 4. You need to ask yourself, is 4 a positive or a negative number? And again, remember we talk all the time about how so much of algebra is things that you learned in 3rd grade and before. And if you asked any 3rd grader if this number is positive or negative, I would be shocked if any of them ever got it wrong. And since this is a positive number, the sign will not flip. So the sign will remain the same. Dividing these, this is x. 20 divided by 4 is 5. So I got x is greater than 5. And again, we can check this by picking a number that's greater than 5. So let's pick a number like 10. Put a 10 in here. 10 minus 3 is 7. 4 times 7 is 28. Is 28 greater than 8? If it's true, then you've pretty good bet that you got that one correct. All right, and since we're talking about multi-step and not necessarily just two-step, remember that there are ways that you might have a bit of a longer problem. And so this one is going to take a few steps, but I'm going to distribute over here, and I'm going to distribute over here. And so this is going to become 4x plus 20 equals 6x plus 12. Now, you have a lot of options as to what you would want to do. You could subtract 4x from both sides. You could subtract 20 from both sides. You could subtract 6x from both sides, or you could subtract 12 from both sides, and all of those would be correct first steps. Personally, because I think that most of you like to deal with positive numbers, I would subtract the smaller x from the larger x. So I would subtract 4x from this side and 4x from this side. This is going to keep the x positive. This will go away. This number is coming down. Keep in mind that plus sign is married to the 20, so this is saying this is positive 20. Okay, the equal sign stays here. I got 6x minus 4x, that is 2x, and then I have plus 12. Well, since I chose to put the x's on the right side of the equation, I want to get the constants over to the left. So the opposite of positive 12 would be negative 12. I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides. That'll go away. I am left with 2x on this side. Don't forget to keep the equal sign in its appropriate spot. 20 minus 12 is 8. Again, I got one last step. I got a number that's in front of the x, that's a 2, so I'm going to divide that number to both sides. This becomes x equals 8 divided by 2, is 4. Perfect, I was running out of space on this one. So my final answer is x equals 4, and if I want, I can take this 4 and substitute it back up here and make sure that it works. 4 plus 5 is 9. 9 times 4 is 36, which means this side would need to equal 36. So I got 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 4 is 12. 12 times 3 is also 36. So I know that this answer is definitely correct. All right, now let's talk about a couple of special circumstances. Let's start with this one. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the 3 to both terms. So I end up with 3y minus 15 plus 25 equals 3y plus 10. Keep in mind that this is going to be a special situation, so you may notice that there's a problem coming up. Some of you may see it already, but the next step I would want to do is combine like terms. So, it's kind of an ugly fancy parentheses, huh? So, negative 15 plus 25. Negative 15 plus 25 is positive 10. So this becomes 3y plus 10 equals 3y plus 10. All right, I think some of you are starting to see the problem. Let's pretend for a second that I don't. So I don't see what the issue is. So next thing I'm going to do is subtract 3y from both sides. Because I want to move the y's, let's say, over to that side, or I want to move them over this side, or however you want to see this. So if I subtract 3y or I subtract 3y, these would go away, and I would be left with 10 equals 10. So the good news is that 10 does in fact equal 10, right? That is actually a true statement. The bad news, of course, is that I have no idea what y equals because the y's have disappeared. So if you get yourself to a point like this, or had I subtracted 10 from both sides, I'd have 3y equals 3y, right? And I could divide both sides and I would have y equals y. So eventually you get yourself to a point where you no longer can solve the problem. If this statement is true at the end, then my answer is all real numbers. And what this means is that I can substitute any number I want in for y, and this statement will be true. So if you came back up here and picked any number you want, 1 million, negative 4, 0.0003, all of these numbers would make this statement true, because this side will always equal that side. All right, now let's take a look at the opposite scenario. Okay, and so I'm going to kind of jump through the first couple steps kind of quickly so I can get you to the part where we get to the problem, right? This is going to be 4n plus 6 minus 9n. Now what I want to do is combine like terms. So I have this 4n and I have this negative 9n. Right? And so when I combine these, I get this side is going to stay the same. So I have negative 5n minus 14 equals, when I put these together, I have negative 5n plus 6. Now, a lot of people would deal with these numbers first, but I'm going to take the variables so I can kind of show you what's going to happen. And since this is a negative 5n, the opposite of negative 5n would be positive 5n. So I'm going to add 5n to this side, and I'm going to add 5n to this side.
Miss Wiesel, please report to the office.
So now, this is coming down, and I've got negative 14 equals positive 6. So my problem here, I actually have two problems here. There is no good news in this particular problem. Not only have the n's disappeared, but this statement is not a true statement. Negative 14 does not, in fact, equal negative 6. And so what the answer for this is the empty set. So the way we draw the empty set is a 0 with a sideward slash going through. And what this means is there are no numbers for n that will ever make this statement true. And you can try if you want, but as long as you substitute the same number in here, here, and here, this side will never equal that side. And so this empty set is what you use. Now I want to make sure that you understand there is a difference between the empty set and this, because this is a number that actually has a value. This means there are no values that will work. This means that the number 0 will work. And then make sure that you don't draw it like this. Okay, this is a Greek letter that we often use in geometry, and you don't want to, as you get further on in mathematics, these two can sometimes be in the same problem, and you want to make sure that you're not dealing with this, and instead you're dealing with this. So this is the empty set, and this is my final answer. All right, so that's all I got for you today on solving multi-step inequalities and equations. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to do the problems on the bottom of the page, and I'll see you in class.